and helped work this out. My wife, Karen, who hosted, professor at Harvard Medical School, who hosted the girls at the winners at the Men's General Hospital. Anna Greet, is Anna Greet here? Anna Greet, and my staff. And Nisha, who did a fantastic planning, professor at Lesley University, who helped plan this. So we did a big planning, and we had the winners come not to our high schools, but to our most famous colleges. Harvard Medical School, Lesley University, Wellesley College. You know, we thought it would be appropriate for the winners to come and share and show their work and do their discussion at the university level, and they were terrific. So I just want to say two other small things. How many high school students here? How many, raise your hand if you're a high school student. If you're under the age of 25, raise your hand. Yeah, we have, they're shy, they're more here. I want to say a few things about this award. This award, I think, is the first in Europe. I know it's the first in Italy. It's probably one of the first. I haven't seen anything like this in Europe. So these are the pioneers. You're the pioneers. This is exciting to host the first Human Rights Award for young people in high school in your region. I find this very exciting to have been part of this process, you know. The second thing is, I want to say a couple of things about the development of the young people. When we first came to meet at the high school, it was different than American high school, completely different. I walked in with our team from Africa, other countries, and everybody stood up. You know that? Everyone stood up at attention. I'm going, wow, what this is? They're standing up at attention, you know? I said, this is fantastic. I said, the teachers here, you know, they really get a lot of respect, you know. So we sat down, and they sat down. They were they were very polite, and I said, what would you like to get out of this human rights project? The young man raises his hand, he goes, Professor Maliki, he goes, I want to know the answer to this question. I go, oh, this is going to be a tough one. How do we change the world? How do we change the world? I'll never forget that. That was so moving to me. The first question and the first comment of this great Human Rights Award was from a young person saying, how do we change the world? Because this world is a mess. And we need to fix this world, and it's the young people here in this room that are going to do it. And we know that. They're our future. The young people are our future. These young people came to Boston. I was so proud of them. My wife, my family, they were fantastic. They were beautifully dressed. Of course, all Italians are beautifully dressed. They were elegante. They were charming. Their discussions were wonderful. They were a little shy at first, and then they took off, and by the end of the week, we couldn't stop them from talking. They were fantastic. At the end of the week, I have to say, I was so proud of these young people. They made me proud. Thank you so much. And I am very proud to be part of this wonderful experiment in your town. Thank you so much.
Okay, now, hoping that our technician is ready, we would like to show you the films that were selected as the first and second prize. These films are have been selected among many others, and they were the best judged by the commission chaired by Professor Modica. So the first film is just called Human Rights by Francesca and Chiara and Elsa of the Liceo Classico Gualterio di Orvieto. Yes, the tech man is there.
Ability to care about other man's problems with an attitude of solidarity and sharing. Don't worry, also we, like the people we interviewed, didn't know much about human rights before we started doing this video. The purpose of this video is to highlight some aspects regarding human rights that we think is important to know, especially for us young people. We hope that after seeing our little presentation, you will get curious and interested in finding out more and become active.
Ci devi pensare? Ci devo pensare. Perché è una cosa così complicata?
In parte. Libertà.
Diritti umani.
Una delle cose più importanti del mondo.
Cosa sono per te i diritti umani?
No. Il diritto di vivere la vita.
Human rights have been of interest in most cultures throughout the history of mankind. We start from Cyrus, who still is considered to be a precursor to the modern Universal Declaration of Human Rights, as he was the first king in history to give his subjects freedom of opinion. Then Socrates, who claimed the liberty of expression and the equality between men as a fundamental individual right, and the Romans Humanitas, which corresponds to what we call civilization. A modification inside the human being and at the same time an extension of the human action on the external world. Men claim the right duty to care about other men's problems with an attitude of solidarity and sharing. As Terenzi said, I am human, therefore nothing human is foreign to me. Other important milestones in human rights history are the US Declaration of Independence, where the individual is given the right to pursue happiness as well, which inspired the Declaration of the Rights of Man and of the Citizen, produced by the French Revolution. Of course, with today's standards, we don't consider neither Greek nor Roman societies to be very democratic ones. Most likely, we find certain native North American tribes to correspond more to our ideals of democracy, being more circular and participative societies and not leaving half of the population out of the consensus and decision-making. For several millenniums, we have struggled to assert general human and individual rights that should include everyone, but only after the devastating tragedy of Second World War, the world finally agreed that it was fundamental and necessary to create a Universal Declaration of Human Rights.
Early in the morning, 70 years ago, the 6th of June of 1944, 2,000 young Americans died on this beach on my back. They die for the human rights. Sometimes, to defend the human rights, we need the violence, the war. But normally, it's better to fight with the democracy. It's the best weapon.
The Declaration of Human Rights, created in 1948, consists in 30 articles. To these days, 193 states have affirmed and legitimized the Declaration.
Nessun individuo potrà essere arbitrariamente arrestato, detenuto e esiliato.
أو القانوني أو الدولي للبلد أو الإقليم الذي ينتمي إليه الشخص، سواء أكان مستقلا أو موضوعا تحت الوصاية أو غير متمتع بالحكم الذاتي أم خاضعا لأي قيد آخر على سيادته.
Ogni individuo ha diritto all'ordine sociale internazionale nel quale i diritti e le libertà enunciati in questa dichiarazione possono essere pienamente realizzati.
Toute personne, aussi bien seule qu'une collectivité, a droit à la propriété. Nul ne peut être arbitrairement privé à sa propriété.
Ogni individuo ha diritto alla libertà di riunioni e di associazione pacifica.
Bildungsfreiheit. Jedem ist das Recht zugeteilt, innerhalb der Grenze seines Landes sich frei zu bewegen und überall reisen.
Ogni individuo ha diritto al riposo dallo svago, comprendendo in ciò una limitazione delle ore di lavoro. Minna 지금но人生の中では、自分のことを尊敬しなければならないです。法律もその人のことを守らなければならないです。保護しなければならないです。
Everyone has the right to social security and is entitled to realization of the economic, social, and cultural rights responsible for his dignity and the free development of his personality.
Toute personne a droit au travail, au libre choix de son travail, à des conditions équitables et satisfaisantes de travail et à la protection contre le chômage.
Cada persona tiene derecho a la vida, a la libertà e alla seguridad personales.
Ogni individuo ha dei doveri verso la comunità, nella quale soltanto è possibile vivere per lo sviluppo della sua personalità.
Niemand darf in Sklaverei oder Leibeigenschaft gehalten werden. Sklaverei und Sklavenhandel in allen ihren Formen sind verboten.
Everyone has the right really to participate in the cultural life of community, to enjoy the arts and to share in scientific advancement and its benefits.
Ogni individuo ha diritto ad avere un tenore di vita sufficiente a garantire il benessere e la salute proprio e della propria famiglia.
All are equal before the law and are entitled without any discrimination to equal protection of the law. All are entitled to equal protection against any discrimination and violation of this declaration and against any incitement to such discrimination.
Każdy ma prawo na to, aby była wszędzie uznawana i uprawni osobności.
Ogni individuo ha diritto alla libertà di pensiero, di coscienza e di religione.
Men and women of full age, without any limitation due to race, nationality, or religion, have the right to marry and to found a family.
Jeder Mensch hat Recht zur Freiheit und zur eigenen Meinung und nicht zu verurteilt zu werden.
Jeder Mensch hat das Recht zu den eigenen Volksaktivitäten teilzunehmen.
And the nationalität.
Everyone has the right to seek and to enjoy in other countries asylum from persecution.
Everyone has the right to an effective remedy by the competent national tribunals for acts violating the fundamental rights granted him by the Constitution or law.
Chaque individu accusé d'un délit est coupable jusqu'à qu'on n'a pas prouvé le contraire.
لكل إنسان حق التمتع بجميع الحقوق والحريات المذكورة في هذا الإعلان دون ما تمييز من أي نوع.
Ogni individuo ha diritto all'istruzione.
Ognuno ha diritto da stabilire, circoscrivere identità sani.
Nessun individuo potrà essere sottoposto a torture o a trattamenti inumani, crudeli o degradanti.
One can think that just by signing the Declaration of Human Rights, automatically societies are democratic and fully respectful in regards to human rights. The reality is that it's much more complicated and complex than we think. Human rights are a continuous process where it is crucial that societies engage and work on a daily basis, both locally and globally, on the fundamental conditions that upholds them. like creating sustainable and clean environments, sustainable fair trade and fair economic policies, free and available communication media, and asserting democratic processes that are more involving and participative than they have been so far. Each country and society has its specific issues and contextualized struggle for asserting human rights and creating more just democratic societies with its heroes and martyrs. Each new era and event brings new challenges for how to applicate and relate with human rights, as well as new technologies and social phenomena like the new social media. Young people in the Western privileged world are forgetting the hard struggle and sacrifices that took for us to gain human rights. We are taking them for granted and maybe at times use them in an inappropriate way and superficially. By doing this, they are slowly losing their significance and meaning. We often show disinterest. Young people struggle for basic human rights or for the violation to which they are subjected in countries that we consider very different from ours. The young people struggle in Turkey, Egypt, and the situation of young teen girls being abducted and put in slavery in Nigeria are issues that we should be more aware of and follow with more interest. We live in an interdependent and connected world. What happens in what we consider a distant remote corner of the world will affect us in one way or another, sooner or later. You may ask yourself, what can I do? What we can do on a personal and daily basis is to have more social involving behavior. When people talk, listen carefully to what they are saying, even if you don't agree. Show more interest in what is going on both close by and far away, remembering that we are all connected with each other. The difficulties of one becomes a difficulty of all. Keep the environment clean. Sustain fair trade. Socialize at time with people who think differently from you, so you can be reminded that we think differently, but we can still be friends. Welcome new people to our societies, making sure that they are integrated and participating in a community where we all depend on each other for our well-being. The most important places for us young people where we exercise democracy and human rights are in our families, our schools, and in associative groups or communities that we are part of. We can only be grateful to live in societies where we are free to express ourselves and live freely our lives. It is a precious gift and right, but at the same time, it makes us responsible to get active in assuring that all of us can live the same right. Everything in this world is connected, so you can always contribute to make the world a much better place for all of us, even with the smallest gesture. It is always important to listen to others and then make one's voice heard. Don't let anyone bring you down, even when you think it is hard. As Oscar Arias Sanchez said, understand that by fighting for the impossible, one begins making it possible. We all should start thinking in these terms because human rights starts from me and you.
Thank you. We shall discuss the films together at the end. Now we'll see the second prize, a film by Alessia Cesaro of Liceo Classico Tacito di Terni. It's called An Announced Genocide. Thank you. Well, Chiara Francesca, Elsa, and Alessia won as a prize a trip to Boston we did together in the last September. This trip was not just tourism, but the Harvard Program Refugee Trauma, the Massachusetts General Hospital and Harvard Medical School, the Lesley University, the Wellesley College, the Boston Fine Art Museum. A lot of wonderful people organized many activities for this group, and this group was involved and sometimes embedded in the activities of this organization. So now there's a short film trying to tell the story of this week. Of course, every single day in this week could bring a full half-an-hour film, and maybe it will. Maybe it will come. But now it's just a few minutes excerpt of it. What is the most interesting thing that Mr. Consul told you?
In Italy, we have it's difficult to say that we failed, while in America, everyone is glad to fail because it's part of life and of growing up.
We have to remember, we were not born empty vessels. We have about 50,000 years of history in our DNA. The video was like a poem. It took a lot of imagination to write for a young girl, a young woman, to write
about Hutu women?
I'm really excited to be here because it's like a revenge on the United States.
Yeah, good.
I like medicine, I want to be a doctor, also to help people like other people help me.
How do you think about the daily experience as young people of human rights? I mean, how do you make that part of your life every day?
Trying to be more involved with other people.
Everything in this office has a meaning to it. It's a meaning from my work over the past 35 years. Yeah. We believe very strongly in the concept. We say there's no healing without beauty.
We started seeing refugees from Southeast Asia, from Cambodia, Vietnam, Laos, after the Vietnam War.
Yeah, I was a teacher in Cambodia, and I live under the command of surviving.
Everybody we see on television coming from Syria, it has endured many human rights abuses. People coming across from Libya, coming up from African countries, most of them are not economic refugees. Most of them are running away from danger.
And then right in the middle, hidden in here, is the woman who's giving birth to a baby. So this is kind of the centrality of the woman and the child. The reason that we got this practice started was because we found that as women doctors, that women patients came to us. And that was just around the time when people were starting to say, a heart in a woman might behave a little differently from a heart in a man. And we were trying to define women's health and do that in a way that was very holistic, that talked about integrating, the mind, mental health, and also the body, and also the social context.
Body and movement being my first language. And how we move is how we feel is how we move. So this whole mind-body connection.
Listen to the paper in a childlike way, wonder about it, explore it. And so the directive is just connect with it, but connect with each other. What happens if you do play expression here? What do you see in a new way?
We're just going to play a little game, and the only two words you need to know are see and no. You're playing with each other. Are we ready to go? Yes. No. Yes. Yes. No. Yeah. Yes. Okay. No.
Because it's a birthday.
Why do you have to care about her? Just care about yourself. And pause for a second, pause now. Who do we think they are? Who could they be to one another? Friends? Sisters. Sisters? What do you think they're talking about?
Their mom's birthday.
It's their mom's birthday? Okay. How old's Veronica?
3, 2, 1, action.
So,
what do you want to do with her?
Well, I would really love to go to the concert, but I also love her, so I can't.
Her birthday is every year. The concert is now.
So today we went to Westlake College, and we had the opportunity to meet a professor. Her name is Marjorie Augustine, She took her to her class, and we had the opportunity to show our videos and to talk with her students about the impressions they had, and they asked us some questions about what we did this work.
And then we had also the opportunity to have lunch with one of the students. Her name was Alexa. It was really interesting to know that there are so many people from all around the world studying here.
Feel as women that the week was sensitive to you as young women?
But we met mostly women.
Yeah. Also, you met, I believe you met quite a few people from other nationalities too. We decided to have a more professional experience for you than the high school semester, because some of the professors you saw are some of the most famous people in the country, you know, so you saw very famous, even though they're informal, like Marjorie and stuff, she's a very world-famous poet, you know. So I don't know if that worked for you or not. I mean, you have to tell me if that was good or bad. I don't
Well, now I have the pleasure to call at the board the principal of the Istituto di Istruzione Superiore Scientifico-Tecnico Liceo Majorana, who organizes the prize together with the Harvard Program in Refugee Trauma. So I call to the board the principal, Ms. Dottoressa Elvira Busà, and Professor Richard Mollica to give the prize to the girls. Okay. So first Francesca Benucci. Then Elsa Maria Festa. Then we have Chiara Elisa Nannarelli. And Alessia Tesaro. Thank you. Okay. Okay, we have to open the discussion, and we have the help of a very, very famous journalist. We have the pleasure to have in the hall a famous journalist who has spent the last 11 years dealing with what is probably the most important issue about human rights in the history of humankind, which is to say the climate change. And so I invite to the board to lead the discussion Mr. Bill Blakemore, ABC News.
Well, I'll just make a couple of comments that I observe as somebody who has made a lot of television news about these two films that were fascinating to me because of their difference and what they had in common. They each had a special way of demonstrating the power of words as important machines and tools of feeling. They did it in very different ways. You notice the second film did not have a narrator, but it made you read. There was a very close continuity between what the words on the screen and this fictionalized story, which was very representative, were saying. And it was easier to read it. Sometimes reading can be hard, but it was easier to read those words because of the picture that was correct behind each sentence. So there was a very close sympathy, a very close harmony between what the words were saying in this fictionalized story and the pictures behind it. If you'd just seen the pictures without those words scrolling up, or just seen the words without the pictures, it wouldn't have been as powerful. It was more than the sum of its parts. And because it was a fictionalized story, you really started following it more and more. You felt freer to identify with the suffering. And maybe you had seen those pictures from those genocidal days in the newspaper, but they didn't mean so much to you because you didn't have a story that was being told in a compressed way while you were looking at the pictures. Maybe when you saw those pictures originally during the Rwandan genocide, you had your own biases or feelings about it, but to have this non-narrated, notice there was no narrator, it was beautiful, it made us read, so it made you participate, because you had to read, but the reading became easier and easier in this fictionalized story. Now the first one was also very moving, and it made the words powerful in a very different way. First, it gave us a history lesson about this idea of human rights. Then it focused on the confusion about definitions, and it made you think, what is human rights? As they began to run through it, but you began to get the idea from the way they constructed the story that human rights are deep in human nature, because you go all the way back to the cylinder of Cyrus and realize, oh my goodness, they were given freedom of opinion back there. The Americans were so proud of our First Amendment. Sometimes we think we invented it. No way, of course. This was like a version of the First Amendment, the natural instinct to do good. So you learn that first from the history section at the beginning of that. Then, again, they made words very powerful because they read word for word the Universal Declaration of Human Rights, which Eleanor Roosevelt, one of the great heroes of humanity, spearheaded and led. And how did they make you listen to the words when they put that movie together? By having different people from different countries, all of them young, with different languages, read the words and put them on the screen again. So the way they presented the words, making you read them, demonstrated what it was talking about. The form and the content matched each other because they had found a different way to give life to each of the words rather than just reading the whole thing. Very different technique from the first one, but again, it really made I didn't really know 2 or 3 of those universities. I'd read it once or twice in school, but it brought back to me, it gave me a new kind of understanding of the Universal Declaration of Human Rights. It was entirely nonfiction. The second one was entirely fiction. Both of them really heightened your intellectual and verbal participation, and that's why I liked it very much. Both of them, because of the similarity also between all of the participants in the first one. They were all young. You are the future. We older folks have left you a terrible problem in this messed up world, to quote Richard Malika, as you just said. Now the world is a mess. It is. It's maybe a worse mess than it ever has been before. It's getting better in some ways, but it's your world now. And the fact that we saw in the first one, the fact that we saw all these different people, all of whom were young, also was itself its own statement. All these young people in the first one, embodying ideas and ideals that they were just beginning to learn, which in fact were as old as humankind. So that's the way that both of them affected me, each in a different way. But I thought very deserved to be the two winners. I don't know what the other numbers are, they're pretty good, but that's what I got from it and why they engaged me, because of their different techniques and the power of words to engage. Now, we have a few minutes for discussion. I just talking about the concept of human rights. We all say, oh yeah, we know what human rights are. You start looking at the idea. Well, what are human rights? People say, does this country have a right to exist? Does that country have a right to exist? What does the word right mean? Is right something that only humans can give? Or are rights given by nature? Are rights given by the Creator, by our DNA? The first one, both of them in a way, made you think about what rights might be, because in the second one, the woman who was narrating, we think we heard her voice, but we didn't actually, we just read it. I was about to make a mistake because I have in my mind the idea that I heard her talking. Her rights were being violated, or she was seeing other people's rights being violated, in a natural kind of sensibility about what should be right emerged from her experience trying to protect her children and the suffering. In the first one, human rights were stated, they weren't fictionalized. Two different approaches to what human rights are. So those are my first responses and thoughts about it. Well, you are the people who made these films are here, right? The four of you all together made them. Were you, was it 2 and 2 or 3 and 1? 3 and 1. And which is the one?
Alessia's the one.
You made the first or the second? The second. How did you go about making it? I mean, this is a fictionalized story, right? I'm fascinated. It really was very effective. How did you get the idea to be so daring as to make up a story that was going to be fictionalized and convey?
Well, I first studied the theme of the genocide at school, so I decided to participate to this project, and I decided to think about what a woman can feel in a situation like that. So I also saw films, documentaries, I saw a lot of things, and I started thinking. It wasn't so easy for me, but I just did it. I just wrote it. It was like natural.
Had you ever seen a movie or a documentary or a film like this constructed exactly like this, where you had just words, not a narrator? You've never seen that before.
No.
You don't know where you got the idea, right?
No.
That's wonderful. Sometimes the best ideas are like that. It was very effective. Also, by doing that, you had to enter the shoes of an imaginary character who represented many, right?
Yeah.
So you had to go through an act of sympathy and empathy yourself. Yeah. You tried to imagine what a woman of 54 was she? You had to imagine that.
Yeah, it wasn't so easy, actually.
It wasn't so easy.
I'm just 18. I didn't live a situation like that, so I just imagined and just tried to do it.
How long did it take you?
Many months.
To write that story?
Yeah.
It shows a lot of thought in that. It was condensed and really beautifully shaped. And I now am beginning to understand why it was so moving, because you were doing an act of empathy and sympathy and trying to understand what it would be like to be a 34-year-old mother, witnessing this created by your own group. The paradox of that, those were all choices that you made to make it a voice of a woman who was a member of the guilty party, so to speak, at first. You put yourself in the shoes of a mother with children and of a human witnessing it. I begin to understand now why it worked so well. It was an act of beautiful writing and and sympathy towards her, and by extension, 2 points make a straight line. So it was an act of sympathy towards any human, very effective. And this idea for not having a narrator, but using only words printed, very daring. Where did you get that idea?
I just wanted to do like a video. I choose the songs, the soundtrack, I choose the pictures. I wanted to read it actually, but then I decided that it was better that people could like feel themselves the woman. So I didn't read it when I participated.
So you kept your own voice out of it,
yeah,
except in the writing.
It's not right that people think that this is my voice, because it can be anybody's story, anybody's voice. Yeah.
That was an act of sympathy. It was a compliment to the audience, because you allowed each one of us with our own head to fulfill the character. And even if you'd gotten you could have hired or asked a 40-year-old woman to read it, but that would have been too limiting. So you gave us just enough to activate our own individual imaginations, and that worked very nicely because you complemented our individuality that way. Very nicely done. Now the three of you, that was a very effective combination, showing us first the history, and then you brought the Universal Declaration of Human Rights alive. It was very subtly done, because first we thought we were going to get a history lesson, and it was very short and well selected, and then as soon as you made your point, you then went to the words themselves, and we saw what you were going to do. We saw that you were going to teach us the Universal Declaration of Human Rights, and in effect, show us the reality that it means respecting every individual by showing us a bunch of different individuals reading it. Where'd you get the idea for this? How did the three of you work together on this?
So we got the idea because when Richard first came and we wanted to join this project, so we asked ourselves what were human rights, because we hear these human rights every day, but we don't know actually what it is. So we kind of try to understand what they are, and that they are not just something that is written in a charter, but it's something that should be included in everyday life.
You realized that you didn't know exactly what human rights means yourself. And so you were not afraid to raise the question. That's a very good technique. You weren't trying to teach us it's like this. You invited us to think about it too by saying, we don't know what it means. And so we participated in the discovery, which means we're going to learn more ourselves rather than thinking we're going to be told a definition. And where did you get the idea for going back and finding the origins of it, going back to the beginning of civilization?
Because I mean, when you ask yourself, like, what are human rights or what are whatever, you usually go back to the history, because through history you can understand better what they are.
Were you surprised to find how old they are?
Yes, we were.
Cyrus, what year was Cyrus?
I'm sorry?
What year was Cyrus who made the cylinder?
Was before
2000 BC, something like that?
Yes.
So you were surprised to find that. It's one of the powerful images of this movie, to see that cylinder there that's saying in effect what we Americans, we're only 200 years old, we're an infant culture, and we're all proud of our First Amendment. And we see in effect, he's saying the same thing. That was a very well chosen fact to tell us. Because whenever you make a movie this short, you've got to make hundreds of choices of what to leave out. And I thought you did a good thing with all of that in this history lesson, leaving out many facts and giving us just the ones that mattered about what human rights are, and then bringing us into the process of trying to define it. And that was an enjoyable series there, where you had a number of young people saying they hadn't any idea or they didn't know, or it was very inclusive for the audience, because some of us would feel a little bit dumb about it. We don't know either, and so we identify more with it. And where did you get the idea for having different voices in different languages? Where did this idea come from?
We just did a brainstorming, and this was one of the main ideas. to try to involve as many people as possible.
We chose to use different languages because they are universal, so each country and each culture should include this, right? So that's where we got the idea from.
So by brainstorming, how long did you brainstorm together to work on this? I mean, you didn't have any idea how you were going to make the video when you began. You could have done anything, and you chose this. So the three of you sat together and brainstormed, let's do this, no, let's do this, brainstorming, right? That showed. Brainstorming is a good word for what the human race needs to do more of in a good way. You got the feeling of the spirit of your conversation in coming, I guess maybe that's what happened. You came up with an idea of all of these different people talking about it, which is like a group. In other words, well, I may be wrong here, but the one that showed the story of one woman was done by one person, and the one that showed a bunch of different people, the first one, was made by three people. So that was, you were working from what you knew and what you experienced. Very good. They were both authentic. Whether fiction or nonfiction is a detail, it's a technicality. Both of these presentations felt honest and authentic, like we were hearing from you, the person. You weren't following any kind of specific recipe. You were inventing it yourself, and that was more exciting to listen to. They were more original for that reason. They had personality of your group and personality of your individual work. Are there any other thoughts or questions about these two products? I don't know if we're almost out of time, but any questions or comments about these films? And we're just the two we're talking about, not the fun trip to America. Well, I think we're about out of time. Thank you very much, and thank you for these beautiful products. They really worked. Thanks a lot.
Thank you, Bill Blackmore. It has been really an honor for the girls to have a discussion with you. Now the time is passing, and so I call Professor Valeria Asta of our school, the Liceo Majorana. She's going to give us a short speech about a global education in the school system. Thank you, Valeria.
Good evening. The science fiction writer G.H. Wells said that civilization is a race between education and catastrophe. So the question is, what are the different countries doing to make education win this race? The main aim of education is to help students to become fulfilled and conscious, aware citizens of the world. But the world has changed dramatically in the few past decades, and it's not always easy to cope with the complexity that those changes have brought about. And instead, many educational systems have remained a step behind. They are very similar to those of the 19th century. So, how should the education change to become a global education? Many countries have found the solution in standardization. They standardize content, teaching, and assessment. They fell in the illusion that a stricter government control, a rising of the academical standard, and regular testing could be the answer of the global world challenges. But exactly the opposite is true. When schools have a huge freedom in developing their own curriculum, and in making their own pedagogical choices. When the schools give priority to creativity and to practical programs, when they have strict, close links to their communities, when they don't compete but collaborate in sharing ideas, expertise, and resources, the schools are successful in developing the skills, the skills that the student need to become an active and conscious citizen of the world. And so, through global education, this citizen should understand his own culture and also learn to respect the diversity of others. And these students should develop a civic and environmental awareness, together with flexibility and adaptability. And also, of course, he should learn the centrality of human rights. But in order to achieve these competencies, the students need a different education, need an education that fosters his creativity, his critical thinking, his problem-solving skills, his collaboration and communication skills. Only in this way the students can understand the local global connection of our world and the complex issues of our times. And he can understand, he can change after this understanding his attitude and his behavior, taking an active role in changing the society. And therefore, a global education must start from local environment and from the single students. The single schools should be the center of innovation, of creativity, of cultural development for their local community. And the single student should be the center of interest for a teacher who knows how to recognize and nurture the different talents and interests. And so for all these reasons, the schools must change. They must change their spaces, their environment. They must change their timetable and rhythm that now are very similar to those of a factory of mass production. And above all, they must change the way and the quality of teaching. A good teacher should be a facilitator and a guide, and not a knowledge dispenser. An inspired teacher can really change the destiny of a possible dropout student. I want to leave you with the words of Ken Robinson from his book Creative Schools that were being inspiring for me. He says that the aims of education are to enable students to understand the world around them and the talents within them, so that they can become fulfilled individuals and active, compassionate citizens. Thank you.
Thank you, Valeria, one of the best teachers we have in our school. And now, Ilaria Bocchino is a young woman who has, since not a long time, a degree in law, but she wants to share with us the point of view of a simple Orvieto young woman about the human rights in this town.
Thank you. Well, talk about human rights is far from easy, and it's a big challenge, especially for me, a young woman, like Pepe says, lucky to be born on the right side of the world. Moreover, in a very pretty little town, as Orvieto is, in which everybody, thanks both to the dimensions of the town itself and the cultural and historical traditions of the people in here, always ready to welcome a new friend, to feel like at home, like in a big family. It's a privilege and it's a fortune, of course. But as we all know, we often realize the importance of something in the very moment when we are deprived. Human rights are rights inherent to all human beings, whatever our nationality, place of residence, sex, national or ethnic origin, color, religion, language, or any other status. We are all equally entitled to our human rights without discrimination, or at least it should be. These rights are all interrelated, interdependent, and indivisible. The principle of universality of human rights is the cornerstone of international human rights law. This principle, as first emphasized in the Universal Declaration of Human Rights in 1948, has been reiterated in numerous international human rights conventions and declarations and resolutions. The 1993 Vienna World Conference of Human Rights, for example, noted that it's the duty of states to promote and protect all human rights and fundamental freedoms, regardless of their political, economic, and cultural systems. All states have ratified at least one, and 80% of states have ratified 4 or more of the core human rights treaties, reflecting consent of states, which creates legal obligations for them and giving concrete expression to universality. So, if we talk about states and law, we can easily notice the strong connection between human rights and politics. At first sight, they seem so distant, politics and human rights. Politics so realistic, and human rights so idealistic. It was so that they were born, thanks to the experience, of course, to the common sense of justice and equality, but above all, thanks to a vision. Many things we think are impossible aren't. We simply haven't the practical will to make it happen. There is nothing naive in believing that things simply impossible are still necessary, and we have to fight to achieve them, just like you do, doing your amazing job, and you have already done during these years, caring about people in need worldwide, survivors of mass violence and torture. Question is, in the words of Brazilian progressist Paulo Freire, what can we do today so that tomorrow we can do what we couldn't do today? But nonetheless, beyond today and tomorrow is the world that we would like to see one day, sometimes, the big idea, the utopia, the distant horizon. Without idealism, there is no vision or ambition. If politics is the art of the possible, then idealism has inside the desire to imagine other possibilities. Because many things that never seem possible are now a reality. Maybe in politics there's no time for dreamers, but without the idealists, it's so difficult to win the big battles. Thank you.
Thank you, Ilaria. Now, time is really passing by. At 6 o'clock, we have the second part of the 10th anniversary, so we have to run. So I would simply declare open the second edition of the Orvieto Youth Human Rights Award. Of course, the students will find in their teachers the help they need to focus on what is the rules and regulations all these technical things we will not discuss here. They are also in the website and on the Facebook page. One thing is for sure that Mr. Molika, Ms. Carlson, Nisha Sajnani, and all the wonderful people that you've seen in the third film are eager to help you, to give you their help for specific subjects or for specific realms, areas of for your works. And so now I ask to the principal to give a brief conclusion. Thank you.
Prima di cercare di, più che fare delle conclusioni, di tracciare alcune linee essenziali di quello che è stato oggi, insomma, l'iniziativa che ha visto appunto la premiazione di questi lavori dei nostri ragazzi, volevo ringraziare tutti i presenti e soprattutto volevo ringraziare sia il professor Mollica e il suo staff, ma anche il professor Blackmore che ci ha onorato con la sua presenza e che, soffermandosi sui lavori dei ragazzi, ha messo in luce quanto sia importante partire dalla interazione educativa con i ragazzi per poter fare una buona scuola e per poter fare dei cittadini consapevoli e sicuramente responsabili.
Okay, before going to the conclusions, I want to thank Professor Mollica and Dr. Blakemore, who focused on the importance of an educational interaction with the students to build or to obtain the conscious citizen.
Per fare dare una piccola conclusione rispetto ai lavori di oggi pomeriggio, volevo partire da una parola estremamente significativa, visione, che appunto la nostra giovane Ilaria ha focalizzato molto bene nel suo intervento. Non si può avere assolutamente una piena cittadinanza e non si possono costruire cittadini responsabili se non c'è una visione che deve essere chiaramente politica, strategica e sicuramente educativa. Senza questi tre elementi non ci può essere futuro per noi, per i nostri ragazzi e soprattutto per quello che deve essere un mondo vivibile e sicuramente un mondo che può dare prospettive. Sì.
Thank you. I want to start from a very significant word that our young Ilaria used, which is vision. We cannot have any citizenship without vision, a vision which can be a political, a strategical, and an educational one. Without a vision, we will have no future for us, no future for the young, no future for the world.
Credo che se nella scuola si può avere speranza di costruire un rapporto educativo significativo e quindi mettere veramente in relazione quello che è la necessità di portare avanti alcuni contenuti, alcuni saperi, non ci può essere nessun tipo di costruzione di conoscenze se non si lavora su quella che è l'interazione educativa, il rapporto forte tra appunto gli insegnanti e il lavoro di promozione, di stimolo e sicuramente di provocazione che viene dagli studenti. Solo da questo tipo di rapporto si possono costruire reali competenze. E abbiamo visto che reali competenze, per esempio, sono stati i lavori che i ragazzi hanno prodotto, i loro bellissimi elaborati che sono oggi appunto qui stati presentati, dimostrano che se diamo spazio ai ragazzi, le conoscenze e quindi anche i lavori fatti a scuola, anche una parte di trasferimento di conoscenze, diventano veramente un patrimonio che può dare un messaggio e anche una dimostrazione di qualità del lavoro fatto anche all'interno della scuola, che è spendibile.
So the only hope to build an educational relationship is based on the relationship between teachers and the stimuluses which come from the students. This is the only way to build competencies in real works, and to give space to the students, give the possibility to build something that constitutes an heritage and a message.
Vorrei salutare la preside di Acqua Pendente che gentilmente oggi è venuta qui da noi e la ringrazio molto per la sua presenza. Grazie. Volevo, comunque, per concludere effettivamente il mio intervento, volevo anche riallacciarmi all'intervento sicuramente sia che ha fatto il professor Mamlica, ma in un certo qual modo che ha ripreso poi la professoressa Asta. La qualità della scuola e diciamo, sicuramente la qualità dell'istruzione ci può essere, speriamo che ci sia, se le nostre scuole non diventano dei contenitori di aule, mobili, situazioni, ma soprattutto di emozioni, di capacità di fare, di utilizzo di saperi anche diversi, molto anche apparentemente lontani da quelle che sono le conoscenze, diciamo, alte, i saperi che impegnano in un modo sapiente le nostre scuole. Da quello bisogna partire per poter veramente poi fare un lavoro che diventi sempre più significativo. Purtroppo volevo concludere dicendo questo: i diritti umani sono la molla, lo stimolo, il punto di partenza che deve essere diciamo, lo sfondo integratore, in un certo qual modo, del lavoro che si fa a scuola. Se non si fa capire fino in fondo come il diritto, l'eguaglianza al diritto all'accesso all'istruzione e anche la capacità di riuscire a governare quello che è oggi un processo dell'immigrazione così apparentemente selvaggio, che è richiesta di poter dimostrare quali sono il diritto della cittadinanza, se non si può lavorare in questo modo non ci sarà futuro, non soltanto per quello che è sicuramente la capacità di poter difendere fino in fondo la Carta dei diritti, ma sicuramente non ha senso neanche quello che facciamo all'interno delle nostre scuole.
Quality in the school system is possible if school opens up to emotions and to practical doing things. This is the start, and the human rights can be the starting spring to start a school which gives us a future. Thank you, everybody. You are invited to make the second part. So I said, you are invited to remain for the second part, and okay, you present it. No, I'm done. In my chair. So we just prendiamo una pausa di 5 minuti e poi continuiamo con la seconda parte di celebrazione del 10° anniversario del Global Mental Health. A 5 minutes break and then we... Come? L'ho invitati? Ah, ho invitato. Yeah.
Where's Jerry? Where's Jerry? I panicked because I couldn't see you. So, here's this.
Yep. Go onto there and get that connected for you.
There it is.